I'm a
I'm sure
little
that
frazzled about what happened, but okay.
it happens. And to be fair, we are communicating all the way across the globe, so these things happen. Anyways, for people who will come and join and also watch this later on IGTV, I'd love for you to share with us who are you and what do you do?
Yes. So my name is Rivkah. I was born and raised in Dominican Republic, so a little island in the Caribbean. And I've worked in finance for like 20 years. I retired in 2015 due to a spine injury that forced me to retire. Took years for me to recover. And during that time, I was going through a lot of turmoil in my marriage. I came to a really difficult situation of where I had been all my life. I had been attracted narcissistic abusive relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the spine injury forced me to go in and realize what was happening in my life. And I started my healing journey 7 years ago. And actually more than 7 years ago, about 10 years ago, started my healing journey. And then, oh, wow, I see people from my community here. So exciting. So I started the healing journey. And then today, what I do, I mean, the turnaround was 180 degrees. So today what I do is help people, but I focus more on women to heal from narcissistic relationships, attract emotionally available partners. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to see the turnaround in their lives.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you on that. And before I introduce myself, I will say your story is a very relevant one because I think many people who've gone through very similar experiences have often worked in a corporate job or under a narcissistic environment where they're burning out and they're often dating very similar narcissistic people and they just don't see it. I think for a lot of them, they think, is there something wrong with me? Everything in my life seems to be going okay, except I'm feeling really bad. For you, it's the spine injury. For other people, it might be chronic pain. For me, I had digestion issues for a long time with my bowel, and I couldn't figure out what was going on there. And it's amazing how when we realize how polluted our social environment is, that it kind of lifts the fog and makes us realize, oh, Jesus, we've had so many toxic people in our lives. But spotting that is not just enough. Like what you said about doing the healing is so important because you could see a narcissist by the patterns and you can still attract them if you haven't done any of the deep healing work. So this is a good segue for me. So my name is Ken. I am a holistic healing coach. I help high achieving men and women to stop attracting emotionally unavailable partners, to attract healthy, secure individuals into their lives by doing the inner work that they've always been a bit afraid to step into. So basically, to complement everything you were saying, I feel that, as you said, it's such a beautiful thing to watch people who are able to really start connecting more with their bodies and starting to take that journey where they realize, oh wow, a lot of this chronic pain, the spine injuries, the digestion issues are mostly caused by a bad environment around us, and actually starting to connect with their feelings, realizing what they need to do in order to heal. I think it's a beautiful journey. Now, today's topic is all about the truth about forgiveness. Rivkah, I don't know about you, I know we talked about this privately, but I feel like there is a lot of mixed opinions about forgiveness. I'd love to hear from you. Like, what were your thoughts about forgiveness over time, and how would you define it for your, for our audience?
Wow. Over time, it was the usual thought that most people in society have today, which is that you must forgive. And that famous quote that has gone all around the globe where it says that, that like not forgiving or holding a grudge is like swallowing the poison yourself, but expecting somebody else to die. And that was my view of forgiveness. Having been a codependent, today I consider myself a recovering codependent. Having been a codependent person, of course, to me, forgiving somebody was an obligation. There's absolutely no question about it, regardless of how I felt, regardless of whether or not that person had made any changes in their life, regardless of whether or not they kept on abusing, bullying me, verbally abusing me, emotionally, whatever. I felt obligated to forgive that person, regardless. And it felt sometimes, it gave me this feeling that it was holier than thou. And deep down, it made me feel miserable because it also felt like I was being bullied into forgiveness.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not a very genuine place to be coming from in the first place, because if you've got a lot of anger and resentment towards the person, forgiveness almost becomes a bit of a cop-out. It sort of becomes a bit of a, oh, well, let's just sweep this under the rug. Let's not fight. Like, you know, we've been fighting for a while now. Let's just like move on. And that's not real forgiveness. And especially in narcissistic dynamics, a lot of narcissists thrive off people giving them the second, third, fourth, millionth chance. And they almost want you to forgive them because then it absolves them of the guilt. They don't want to sit down with you and have a protracted discussion about how you feel. It becomes a bit of a, I'm sorry you feel that way. Can we move on now? And as a consequence, we are made to feel like we're not good enough, like none of our previous emotional considerations matter. And so it becomes like a growing resentment pile in the back of our mind, in our bodies. And it's a very painful feeling where we just feel consistently invalidated. And I think, to be completely honest, it kind of makes forgiveness seem cheap. It makes forgiveness seem like something that's not worth doing at all, because why forgive if these people aren't ever going to respect us? But I think that, similar to you, I would say I had a very similar journey where I found forgiveness to be that holier than thou approach, where it was, you know, you have to forgive, like it's an obligation. And so I really grew out of it. I really just stopped doing it because for a time I was just like, well, I'm actually not going to forgive these people because they've really hurt me. And that was before I knew how to go through proper healing to actually express my anger in a healthy way, to get that resentment off my chest. How's it been for you? Like, how do you feel that you've transitioned from the cop-out of forgiveness to where you are today?
Wow. You know, I love what you said about anger, because this is a really, really important thing. I don't know why in our society, and you know, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Why do we want to suppress anger so much? And I'm not saying that people need to be walking around angry, whatever, but we ought to be able to express our anger. And many times, as you know, and as I'm sure many of the people that are here know, anger many times is something that keeps us moving forward, keeps us looking ahead, you know. And I just feel that anger has gotten such a bad rap, and I believe that anger helps us in the process of forgiveness. It helps us keep our, you know, keeps us grounded, and it helps us, it gives us a perspective. And I'm sure we're going to go into it. I want to make sure that the people here don't think that I am against forgiveness. I am all for forgiveness, okay? Within the realm of sanity, of functionality, of something that works for the person, you know. So, you know, that's what I can share. But I feel that it's okay to be angry 100%. If they hurt you, if they continue to hurt you and expect you, like you were saying, you know, for example, those of us that have been with abusive or narcissistic partners, they immediately expect you to forgive them right away, you know, regardless of what happened, regardless of whether or not they know they hurt you. You have discussed the situation 10 times already and they continue to do it. Of course you have all the right in the world to be angry. And you have all the rights in the world to not forgive, quote unquote, meaning say, okay, we are done here. This is where it ends. I'm not going to take it any further than here.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. I think to answer that question you asked me, like, why do we not really value our anger as much? Well, I think we're basically gaslit and told, oh, but you shouldn't be angry. If you're angry, you're a bad person. Like, if you're angry, there's something wrong with you. And so over time, when we do become angry, I think, you know, we develop that label. Like, I don't know about you, but I used to always be called by my family, like, oh, you're an angry person. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm reacting to your anger. And so it became this very hypocritical dance of me angrily getting back at the angry people in my family who would then go, stop yelling. And it's like, I'm yelling because you're yelling. Well, if you're yelling, I don't think we want to have you at the family table because you're someone who's just being crazy now. And that's just like, what? So when you're in a cycle of invalidation, you're essentially looking for ways to shove your anger down so you can protect yourself from the bullshit that is around you. And then I think if you're also hanging around people who've undergone a very similar experience, I think we're ashamed of our anger because we've been told all our lives, oh, well, we can't be angry. And so it becomes really awkward. It's sort of like, oh, great. Now how do I deal with this anger? Everyone's judging me now. It looks really awkward that I'm angry. Oh, God, that means that I'm a bad person. It's like, no, you're not a bad person. You just haven't been given the right to express a human emotion because everyone around you is invalidating you. Mm-hmm. So I think to tie this all into what you were saying, our anger is totally valid. And I think that one of the reasons, and this is something I always tell my clients, especially off the back of heartbreak and just getting over partners who have been abusive, I say, you just don't get over someone overnight. You actually need to honor that anger. You need to let it out of your system. You need to give it the space so that way it brings up the other emotions that are lying underneath it, like grief, so you can get that off your chest. Without that, there is no forgiveness.
So true. That is so true. Without that, there's no forgiveness. And what we're doing is we are covering up our feelings and accepting this thing that society tells us that we need to forgive other people. I remember, it just brings to mind a story of something that happened to me. And it was that there was this friend who was very troubled. You know, those people that they go from one problem to another, one problem to another. It's just like, it never ends with them, right? So among the issues that she was having issues with her partner, and then issues with a babysitter, a lot of stuff. So all of a sudden, one morning, she shows up at my house at 3 a.m. with her baby, saying, I need you to take care of my child. Now, mind you, I work in finance on a trading floor. I have to be at my desk at 7 in the morning. And I need you to take care of my son because I can't, I don't have a babysitter, whatever. And I'm like, okay, no problem.
Oh,
so
no.
I made arrangements for my mom to take care of the baby and all that stuff. Following day, she shows up, same time, drops out the baby without any prior arrangement. So the third day, the night before, I said, tomorrow, my mom is not able to do it. And then she said to me, well, can you just take off work and take care of my child?
Oh, no.
And I said, no, unfortunately, I can't take care of work. She said to me, this is unbelievable that you're doing this to me. And I'm like, why? And she's like, how can you not take off work from? And I said, you know what? I can't do it. Are you ready? 3 o'clock in the morning, the next morning, she shows up at my door. In other words, aside from me telling her no, she's forcing me to do this. I opened the door and I greeted her at the door and I said, absolutely not. And she's like, so what do you want me to do with my child, Rivkah? I don't know what you're going to do. That's your problem. She said to me, you're supposed to be a spiritual person. A spiritual person does not behave like this. Oh, I was like, wow, this is like gaslighting to the max, you
Oh
know?
yeah. Oh yeah.
To make me, try to make me feel guilty. A spiritual person doesn't behave like this. I was like, you know what? Go home. And I closed the door. That was it. I just felt like this is the ultimate gaslighting, manipulation. And these are things, Ken, this is just an extreme example, but we all put up with things like this growing up in family dynamics and romantic relationships. This was an extreme, but we all do it.
Oh yeah.
And the person who's manipulating or trying to do that to us will come up with creative things like that. I thought you were a spiritual person. That's not the way a spiritual person behaves.
That story is frightening. Like,
yeah. I mean,
on so many levels.
You understand why I had to like close the door and tell her to leave. And I was like, this friendship ends today. That's it. I'm done.
Yeah, and I mean, good on you for having boundaries with that. And I don't say that in terms of like, you know, oh, well done. It's more of like, no, actually, good on you, because it's amazing how in the power of hindsight I can say that. But when you're in those moments, you've been brought up to believe like what you believe, to help people out, to always put others first. It is hard to stand in your truth and say, no, I don't want to do this. You got a person who's holding a baby in front of you being like, oh, you know, just look after my child at 3 a.m. You're under a lot of pressure. And you've already said yes once. I mean, like, it's really different.
2 days in a row. But the issue is, the reason why I had the guts to do it, I couldn't believe I did it. It broke my heart to do it. I couldn't believe that at that moment in my life, I had the guts to do it. But this was a friend who I have been there for her 100% all the time. For her to force that into me and then try to guilt trip me as if I hadn't done things that only a sister or a parent would do for somebody. Then at that point, I was able to see everything clearly. And I understood this is why she goes from one tragedy to the next, you know? But anyway, whatever. So yeah, we have been trained to let people just do whatever they want, be in the name of forgiveness, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. In fact, I have a similar story, not maybe without putting a spectrum on the extremity of it, but like I've had actually a very similar feeling recently where I had, and I will tie this back to forgiveness, like I had someone who I considered a very close friend for a very long time. I found out that she was actually cheating on her husband with another guy. And what she would do is she'd say to me, Ken, can I say to my husband that I'm with you when I'm actually seeing this other guy? And I actually really struggled to say no up until a point where I was just like, hell no, like absolutely not. And for me, like you, on the third time realizing this is who you are, I had that moment when I fully digested everything that was happening. I was like, you just don't do that to someone. You don't allow your lies and your deception to be a way of validating this friendship. Like, that's just not the way it's done. And I actually had to take time to really digest my anger, to get to a point where I was like, I had to grieve the friendship because I was like, oh my God, this is not what I thought it was. I had to accept it for what it was, a very narcissistic friendship, and be like, okay, now what am I going to do about it? And so for me, I had to mentally forgive this person. And in fact, it was only just on Monday this week when I actually pulled the trigger and confronted them via a voice message and said, I just think our values are unaligned. I think that, you know, I haven't really been able to show up for you as a friend maybe recently, and that's because I just feel like the need to back away from this. I wish you all the best. And their reaction just said everything. The first thing that came off the back of that was, lol, how random. And my brain went, well, that's just confirmed everything, hasn't it? And one of the powerful things about getting to that stage where you have gotten to a place of forgiveness and you don't feel guilty about doing this is indifference, is when you're able to be like, I see you for who you are. I see you for your pain. I see you for the trauma and how much it must hurt inside to be you. And I'm sorry that that is your journey. And I don't take responsibility for your pain. And that is why I forgive you for what's going on, because I can understand how you, as you are acting the way that you are. And that is why I can walk away from this knowing that it's got nothing to do with me.
Wow, that is so powerful what you just said. It is so true, because I couldn't put it in those words. And that's exactly how I felt regarding this former friend. That's exactly how I felt. That's her journey. And I could see how she creates drama in her journey. And I feel sorry for her journey. And I also felt I've been here for you throughout this journey. Now I choose to step away. This is not my journey. My journey is a completely different one. And I choose not to be part of yours anymore. You know, and I 100% I was upset that day, that last day, because she showed up trying to force me to do it. But I was at peace and I forgave her. Now, one thing I do want to share, Ken, I don't know how you feel about it. We did touch on gaslighting, but I do feel that one of the ways in which society, religion, tries to force us into forgiveness is through gaslighting.
Oh, God.
Like what she just said, what she said to me, which is you're supposed to be a spiritual person. And like shaming people into it and dismissing people's feelings into it. What are your thoughts on that?
Great question. I'm really against that, because that's a form of spiritual bypassing, which is this idea that you should just forgive and forget, which I absolutely do not agree in. And to explain that, think of it like this. Say, for example, you're in a relationship, a romantic one, and you're expected to just forgive and forget someone because they've done something that hurt you. Most people who cheat in relationships or end up breaking away from relationships is because they've had to forgive and forget, because they haven't had the opportunity to actually voice their resentment in a healthy way. And so everyone's just rushing to, sweep everything under the rug, and they're not even addressing the real issue at stake. Like, this is so problematic in my eyes. And I think in the realm of religion, I know we touched on this when we spoke privately, I think that we need to be very careful with how we try and rush people to that stage. I think that, actually, I can give you a great example of this. I was actually part of a coaching workshop, and there's this very high profile coach who was just talking to the community of people who were there, learning what it would be like to work for themselves. Like, this is very introductory to coaching. And he invited several people to speak on this Zoom call. And this one woman spoke up, and he asked her, what is your biggest fear in becoming, your own best leader, your coach? Like, what's stopping you? And she said, honestly, it's my partner. He has very narcissistic traits. And as she said that, she started to break down into tears on this Zoom call. He's running a smear campaign against me. I don't feel like I could even birth the business I want to do without it getting shut down by my ex. I am scared. I am feeling so alone and so frightened. And he said, well, have you done the forgiveness work yet? And my mind blew right up. And I was just like, no, no, no. You do not do that to someone, because that is too far down the line. That's like saying to someone who's, you know, got like maybe a diagnosis of a non-malignant cancer, you need chemotherapy. It's like, what? We're not even there yet. Like, what do you mean? So in the realm of healing, absolutely not. Get your anger out first, grieve, and then in your own time, forgive.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That just broke my heart.
It broke mine.
My heart. This is why this is so important. It's so important what you just said. I mean, people, it's like he basically just gaslit her into forgiveness. Like, move on. It's like somebody's coming and saying that they've been diagnosed, that they're going to die in a month, and you're going to say, come on, get on with life. You need to get positive. You have a month to live. What? You know, like, oh my goodness. Insane. It's a form of yeah, like, we're so, and don't get me wrong, please, I do believe in forgiveness. And I want to give one example that may land with some people as to how I view forgiveness, and it goes very tight into the example that you just gave about this coach. I get women, right, who are having relationship issues, and the man leaves them, right? I don't want to be with you. They're hot and cold because they attract emotionally unavailable men. So then the man is hot and cold, and then one day he leaves her, right? Then they come to me desperate, right? And then I give them the guidelines. If this is a man that you're interested in that has a whole bunch of stuff going on, and perhaps he's not a narcissist, because of everything that I've asked them, I realize they have a dismissive avoidant attachment style, which is an attachment style that can be healed.
If they want it to be healed.
If they want it to be healed. Because like I said to them, you're not their therapist. You're not there to encourage them to go to therapy or anything like that. Okay, so the guy is otherwise a wonderful guy, and they want to attract him again. The guy comes back, and I tell him, you got to be ready. If he comes back, which he is, if he's a dismissive avoidant, he's going to come back a month from now, 3 weeks from now, 2 weeks from now. If you open the door to this man 100%, like nothing happened, and you forgive this person without having a discussion, without determining the kind of relationship, that dynamic that you're looking for and the kind he's looking for, you're going to go back to the same mess or worse. So that's the difference. They're telling me, yeah, but we're supposed to forgive. Yeah, you can forgive a person if you want. You forgive them for walking away, but that doesn't mean they're entitled to the same kind of relationship they had with you.
I love that so much. Yes, 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 yes. And I want to add to that too, because that's a very common dynamic. The dismissive avoidant dynamic. I've been there, and it's not fun.
Yeah, me too.
Like, oh boy, emotionally unavailable people. Anyways, my specialty. Basically, yes. I'm exhausted even thinking about it. Basically, like, okay, in that sort of circumstance, I remember I myself, when I was in like the brink of heartbreak, and I was like in total disbelief when the guy that I loved, you know, walked from that experience very abruptly. I obviously had no idea what avoidant patterns of behavior were. I didn't know the signs of emotional unavailability. I didn't even know what that term really meant. And like you said, you know, my brain was thinking, oh, well, you know, he was such a lovely guy. Like, he was so good to me. And I was trying to like suppress my anger by being like, oh, but you know, he wasn't bad to let go of me. I'm sure he had his reasons, blah, blah, blah. And I was gaslighting myself by not even
Yes.
feeling my rage and being upset. And I have seen so many people who do this. And as a consequence, they stay stuck in grief way longer than they should. Because when you look at the stages of grief, which is exactly the same as heartbreak, you start out in disbelief, anger, sadness, bargaining, and then I call it indifference. But, you know, if you're stuck in that disbelief stage, trying to ignore the anger and, oh my God, you're fighting your body because your body's just like, hello, I'm hurting. Can we honor this, please? Your mind's like, oh, but no, like they were a great person. I'm never going to see the likes of which again. You are trying to get to stage 5 when you're stuck at stage 1 and you're not honoring stage 1, which is, okay, that person just left me abruptly. I'm pretty pissed off about that. Like, I thought everything was going right. I actually need to honor my own reality, my own emotions, and be like, that's bullshit. And here's the problem. I think because, you know, we see so many couples and relationships where it's just like drama cycle, kind of like what you were sharing with your friend. And we're like, well, we don't want to be that person. We don't want to be that person who's constantly bitching about their ex, who's constantly making drama. And that's the problem, is that I think we are so damn concerned what other people might think about our feelings. We're worried about being that person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, get your grief out. Get your anger out. Like, seriously, just do it. Because I have seen some clients too who've tried, like, to rationalize this amazing human being in their life, to keep them in their circle. And I, with all compassion, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is keeping them stuck longer than they need to.
Yeah. You know, I was fascinated. I wish I could have written it down. I love the stages that you mentioned, and I love the stage of bargaining because we've all been there, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what are the stages again?
Yeah, so I'll explain as I go. So there's disbelief, which can have a bit of bargaining elements to it too, because you can basically be at that stage where you're like, oh, but we were meant to be together. They were like my soulmate. And believe me, I've said those words. Like, I know I'm not just joking when I say this. Then you get to anger, where you're just like, F this, F that person, screw them for doing this to me. I can't believe that they would do that. And once your anger gets out, you then get to a stage of grief where you just mourn the loss of it. You're like, damn, that sucked. And then you get to bargaining. Now, I really don't like that word, so I'm going to basically say it's more of a questioning phase. I find like some people often then get to that stage being like, how the hell did I get here? Because by this time, you've kind of taken them off the pedestal. You're kind of like, oh, this person is just, you know, they are who they are. They're not perfect. But how the hell did I get with an emotionally unavailable person? And as you start to work your way through that and be like, oh, okay, it was my family. I was brought up in this environment. That's how it led to this dynamic happening. That gets you to a place of indifference because you're like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. It's not me. It's them. Mm-hmm. They have trauma. They're a narcissist. Whatever it may be that fits your narrative. But at least, but what it does is mentally, it allows you to stop self-betraying yourself because you stop taking responsibility for the breakup. You stop feeling like you're the bad person. You're at the stage where you're like, oh, well, this was inevitable. That was what was going to happen, which allows you to get to indifference where you're like, well, of course I ended up in that situation with that person because that's how it was. It's like saying I hit a boulder and there's something wrong with me for hitting the boulder. It's like, well, no, if you hit a boulder, you will be hurt. Like, that's just the way it is. It's like, oh, okay, well, if I hit a boulder, I'm hurt. Duh. Makes sense. You're not beating yourself up for doing that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. But you know what? I have to tell you, I love that terminology of bargaining because that's exactly what it is. For those of us that have been there, you know it. Like, we start bargaining, we start negotiating, we start thinking, oh, it wasn't that bad. Just like you were saying before. Well, you know, he had or she had these things, but you know, this and that. And we start bargaining. and we start, you know, minimizing what's really important with us and what really happened, the dynamic and what was really happening, we start like negotiating with our own brain, you know, and trying to minimize really what happened and how we felt and how that doesn't align with what we want. We start just minimizing it in order to fit this person back into our lives, you know, which is to me a form of toxic forgiveness, because we are just shrinking to be able to fit this person. There was somebody that I coached, and she came to me in the middle of a relationship. She was just dating this guy, and I gave her some guidelines, you know, because she was just shrinking, bending over backwards for this guy, right? And then I said to her, you know, you're not being you, you're shrinking to be with this guy. This guy is going to be so bored with you, right? Because you're not even being, he can't connect with you. You're not you. You're being whoever you think he wants to be. And she said, I'm terrified of following your advice. I'm terrified. And I said to her, she said, I'm gonna lose him if I act like me. I'm like, you're gonna lose him if you're not you. 3 weeks later, the guy was gone, and told her, I don't feel a connection with you. I feel like you're acting from me, and it makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yep. And you know what? I love what you just said. Like, you know, if you keep acting like someone else, you're going to lose him. Well, I'm going to add to that. You keep acting like someone else, and you're going to lose yourself. Yes. Because this is the really powerful part about this. And this is when I start talking about self-betrayal, and people will be like, what? So when you're in grief like that, you're actually not mourning the loss of that person. You're mourning the loss of yourself, because your body is going, can we please reconnect the brain back with me? Can we please like bring everything back together? And it's one of those beautiful moments in a breakup where it can actually cause you to go through a spiritual awakening, where you actually bring the body and the brain back into alignment. However, many people will try and bypass these stages, repress and suppress the emotions, and, you know, sweep it under the rug and say, oh, I've forgiven them. It's like, no, you haven't. Like, no, you have not forgiven that person. Stop lying to yourself. Like, I think the thing that we don't understand physiologically is that when we go through that massive stage of heartbreak, I hate to say it, but that is actually a very abnormal thing to happen to our bodies. We should never have to get to that stage, but we only get to that stage if we've been groomed and raised to have such a prevalent love for external validation. That's why when we're in these emotionally unavailable relationships, we see so many of us lose ourselves to these people because we think they're my happiness. Subconsciously, that's the thought. We don't consciously think it, but what we often will say is like, oh, if I lose that person, I might die. It's like, well, actually, you very well might, because you've literally replaced your sense of being on that person. Your brain can't function with that. It's like, no, I don't like this. And your body's like, actually, I prefer me. And I'm going to give you signs of depression, anxiety, and massive grief if you don't bring me back to where I am. And that's the scary thing, and that's what I always share with people too as part of this community, is that I always say to them, listen, depression and anxiety, in my eyes, including grief, are not mental illnesses. They are your body's natural responses to you being out of alignment with yourself. And so if you're getting that, be honest with yourself. It doesn't mean you're mentally ill. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It means you are going through a very, very rough emotional time. And the only thing you can learn, and this is actually a great lesson on forgiveness, forgive yourself for getting to that stage.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. I love this. And I love the concept of the depression and anxiety. So let me ask you something, Ken. So how can people forgive others? What has to happen in your view? What do you tell your clients?
Great question. I think the thing that I would say very simply is get angry, then allow yourself to be like, okay, I can let go of that now because it's out of my system and I can forgive. So the method that I have used very effectively is I've taken this from one of our colleagues, Adriana Bucci from Let's Get Your Shift Together. I introduced rage journaling. And what it is you basically write for like 20, you basically write for 20 minutes on a topic that really speaks to you about like something that's really hurt and upset you. And so you just go to town, you're writing for 20 minutes and just getting angry, cussing, just say whatever you feel like. It's so liberating. Once you're done with that, you rip it up and then you just throw it away or burn it, whichever you prefer. And you then sit with that emotion for about 10 minutes afterwards and just like let it come off your system. And then what I find within a few days or two, as your body is actually feeling a bit tired and repairing itself from the release of the anger that was trapped in the body, you get to a stage where you're just like, that person, that situation, that opportunity, me, I don't feel so bad about that anymore. In fact, I feel like I just don't feel anything at all. And that is the most powerful place to be for forgiveness. And I think you and I actually, last time we spoke, we had such an amazing chat about our respective, forgiveness for our mothers as well. And, I'd love to hear from you, maybe if you don't want to go into like private details, but I'd love to hear, like in Rivkah, in your experience, what has been the difference between, shall we call it like toxic forgiveness and real forgiveness?
Yeah. Toxic forgiveness is what I mentioned at the beginning, this thing that I was listening to for years, that society says you have to forgive. Some people say you have to put the other cheek, whatever. And I'm like, and I did it and I feel this feeling of holier than thou, yet I felt resentment inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I am able to forgive people wholeheartedly, because one of the things that I do is exactly what you said. Sit in my anger, feel my anger, allow it to be. Something that I tell my clients is really to be in their bodies, through enjoying life, through grounding, meditation. I am 100% believer, and I tell them all the time about writing, having a journal. One of the 3 ways in which we connect with our subconscious, which is where 90% of who we are, our fears, limiting beliefs, trauma, emotions live, right? So connect with that. And that has helped me a lot. And once I go through the period of anger and I write what I feel and all that, then once I'm ready to have a conversation with the person. And that conversation is not about forgiveness per se, but let's say something happened between us, how we can move on from there. Very important. What do I need in a relationship, and what do you need in a relationship, right? Mm-hmm. So for example, there's somebody that I love very much in my life, somebody that's so important in my life, and I cut the relationship with this person. We see each other at gatherings once or twice a year. That's basically it. Why? Because I spent years trying to years trying to forgive, and the person came back with the same kind of gaslighting, abusive, and bullying situation. And then it came to the point where I was like, I'm no longer there, and I don't need to be forgiving. I don't need to be putting up with this abuse just for the sake of family, right? So I had a last conversation with a person. Are you willing to meet me here, right? And respect me and honor what I'm asking you. And the person was like, no. And actually, I think you're crazy for asking me that. And I said, okay, so we ended here. And that's it. So basically, trying to work things out, right? trying to honor each other. If that's not going to happen, you can forgive the person from afar. Forgiving a person doesn't mean that you have to stay in the relationship, that you have to stay connected to that person.
I completely agree with you wholeheartedly. And congratulations for doing that too, because I think that it can be hard to do that.
Hard. Yeah.
Because I think we often forget that actually with forgiveness, there is an element of boundary setting that happens there too, because we're protecting our peace. We're protecting, you know, our own sense of emotions. You know, I can imagine for you, you know, being in contact with that individual was probably causing you to feel very, you know, not feel good. And this is the reason why, you know, commonly you hear in therapy, and how do you feel about that? But what it's really trying to ask you is, if you're on a spectrum where inner peace is exactly where you want to be, it's that beautiful balance, and you're way over in the negative because of someone's actions, how can we get you back to feeling peaceful? So that's why it's really valuable to have boundaries with individuals, because you then protect your peace, which, by the way, in and of itself is not always the easiest thing to do, because often we have a lot of guilt and shame about that. We're like, oh, am I being a terrible person for letting go of this individual? Sit with it. Like, that is one of the most powerful things to do in those moments, is just to sit with that shame and that guilt and realize a lot of that is actually conditioning you've had from people that have been around you. I know for me, one of the ways that I got through a lot of that was by questioning that, being like, is that my voice that's telling me I'm guilty, or my mother's voice that's telling me that? Because I don't agree with my mum in life about many things. I respect my mum gracefully as, you know, a human being, as part of my family, but I don't need her thoughts to be my own, because I realize that I trust myself more than to worry about the opinions of others.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know that this is amazing how you said that, because it's true. Many times we have to stop. I mean, when we are like, you know, like living from within, we notice these things that, wait a minute, who's that talking in my head? Is that me? Or is that what I learned? Is that me? Or is that my mom or my dad talking? You know, and it's when we really live within ourselves from the inside out instead of from the outside in, we're able to catch up on these things, right? Now, one thing that you said, which is really important, I always tell my clients about boundaries, right? Boundaries, a lot of people look at boundaries as a stop sign. I look at boundaries as the highway to your heart. If somebody tries to push away your boundaries, disrespect them, trash them, that person doesn't get the right to take the highway to your heart. As simple as that, you know?
I 100% agree with you. I 100% agree with you. I think you're absolutely right. And I love that because it's very flexible. I think sometimes we think of boundaries as being exactly that, a stop sign, which is very rigid. It's like, no, no further here. And I don't approve of that. I have, the example I give my clients is I say, okay, imagine you own a penthouse or a hotel, and the top floor is reserved for only the people who have the shared values with you and the behavior that you accept. Now, you being the owner of that hotel actually get to choose what you want to allow and who you want to allow on that top floor. At times, you may be like, ugh, I know this person's trouble, but you know what, today I don't mind allowing them in. That's power to you, because you choose who you want into the sacred center of your life, your heart, if you will, that, you know, getting closer to that vulnerable part of you. And I think when I don't want to say when we protect our hearts, because I think that's not the right verbiage. I'd say more like when we choose to be flexible with what we allow and who we allow into our lives, it gives us the opportunity to really be like, okay, I know that if I have this individual in my life, this is likely going to be the way I feel about it. So what's my next course of action? Do I want to let them back into my life? Do I want them to be interacting with me? I don't know. But at the end of the day, it kind of stops us from just blindly saying, yeah, you can join me. I can meet this toxic family member. I can bring back this emotionally unavailable partner into my life. It makes you realize, okay, I know that if I allow this person into my life, I may not feel how I want to feel. And it's up to you to decide, is that serving you?
Yes, beautiful. I love it. I love it, Ken. Now I know that we're getting back. We're almost getting to the time, right? And I wanna make sure that we get this live. I promised some people in my community that I would get it recorded, right?
Mm.
That I will post it. But before we wrap up, Ken, I would love to hear about this masterclass that you put it together, which, by the way, I signed up for it because I
Yeah.
can't wait to get in. So tell us about it.
Yeah, sure. I'll respect time as I say it too. So the masterclass Secure and Settled is coming up next Friday in Australia, which will be 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Thursday, the 24th of June. And what it is really aimed for is high achievers, business owners, entrepreneurs, coaches, and really what you're going to be getting out of this. I mean, look, that's who it's for. But here's really what it's about. So if this resonates to anyone listening, please come along. It's going to be about why you are attracting emotionally unavailable partners and what you can do to attract healthy, committed people into your lives. I am not going to be talking about the usual BS that I've seen some of my peers talk about, where they're like, you just need to raise your mindset. This is how you're more confident in dating, or just do this in order to attract the guy or girl. No. It's going to be really deep. I'm going to be talking about how trauma, narcissism, conditioning, upbringing, all impact the way in which we select our partners. And I'm going to be using this opportunity to really help people better understand how they can break that down and also improve other areas of their lives too. Like, for example, I'll be talking a lot about how, because I find that a lot of high achievers have actually been groomed from narcissistic families, spoiler alert. But
Yeah.
it's really going to be about helping people to better understand how they can also start working less guilt-free. And that's a big thing, because I know as a business owner myself, I am a recovering high achiever where I was just go, working hard. I now only work maybe about 15 to 20 hours a week, and I love it. And I'm feeling great about it. I don't have any shame about it. I don't feel any guilt about it. But it does tie into the relationship mix, and that's because often our inner critic, which I'm going to be teaching how to silence, comes into the mix and is often like, oh, you need to be productive, you're being lazy. And that can also influence our dating and relationships, where often we're like, I need to impress this person. I need to show my best self with this person. And really we're acting out of trauma. So that's a little snippet of what it's going to be about. And I'd love to have people join if they can. So yeah, I'm excited for it.
I am so excited. I can't wait. I already signed up, so I'm gonna be there. I can't wait for this.
Yeah,
This is
I'm looking
awesome.
forward to it. And then I'll be introducing also my course that I'm offering off the back of that to help people to really work through this, because it's really going to be a beautiful opportunity to be like, look, this is what I'm here to share with you. This is the vehicle on how to get out of this as quickly as possible with my guidance. So that's what it's all going to be about. So yeah, Rivkah, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about the truth about forgiveness, because I think that realistically speaking, it is a very, 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 very poorly misunderstood topic, but I think it's such a powerful thing. For my audience, where can people find you?
Thank you. So they can find me on I'm betting on you, or they can just email me at helpme at I'm betting on you. Betting with 2 T's. Betting on you. Yeah, I'm betting on you. That's basically it. So, wow, it was an honor to be here with you, Ken. And I am.
Oh, I think I lost you for a little second there, Rivkah. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome. Wonderful. Wonderful. Great. So, I guess, I don't know, did you say something before or?
Oh, the only thing I was going to just finish up by saying is I will just edit the live and I will send that to you and also put it on my page too, so that way we can share that with our respective audiences.
Wonderful, wonderful. It was great being here. I send you a big hug from Miami.
Yay.
Thank you, everybody that joined. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you everyone who joined. It has been such a fun exchange with all of you, and I look forward, Rivkah, to continuing to chat and also to hear about your journey going forward too. I'll see everyone later. Bye-bye.
Yeah, same here. Bye-bye.